This is TechCenix Podcast Episode 8, the Android Adpocalypse, where we cover Glance's lock screen ads for Android phones, some of the new car launches in the US and Indian markets, and Ubisoft ending online services for older games. The TechCenix Podcast is available weekly on YouTube and all major podcast platforms. We hope you enjoy this episode. Okay, so starting this week, let's talk about some of the tech topics. And one of the big topics this week, at least here in the US, that got a lot of coverage, is that there is a company called Glance that's planning to launch Android lock screen advertising services for Android phones in the US. Within about 2 months. This was reported by TechCrunch on July 5th. And it's caused a bit of a stir here in the US as expected, because this is not something that's really, it's not necessarily something that consumers want. So, yeah.
It's a tricky one. I mean, see, as long as it's something that people need to opt in for or can opt out of, I think it's fine. It's harmless.
Yeah.
The thing that gets me a little bit is, it says Google back Glance, right? So what I noticed from some of these videos is it's got this sort of TikTok-y Reels kind of vibe.
Yep.
And I'm imagining, how is Google okay with something kind of potentially in the competing space as YouTube Shorts? So...
Well, if
my understanding might be wrong about what they're trying to showcase.
Well, it could actually be a channel for YouTube Shorts, right? Like maybe Glance doesn't necessarily host the videos, and they have like a basically sort of like an ad auction style platform for content as well. And the idea then being that, you have this lock screen real estate that's available suddenly for advertising. So let's shift a little bit into perspective and kind of talk about what are the sort of like previous versions of the same thing. So one company that's done this, and initially there was quite a bit of hoopla, but then consumers kind of accepted it, was Amazon. So the Amazon Fire devices, especially the Amazon Kindle Fire, I guess, or most of their Kindle devices, they've almost always had, various ad supported options. Like you could buy a Kindle, and you could buy a Kindle for $30 less if you are willing to opt in for the ad supported version. And the ad supported version of the Kindle would just show you Amazon ads. So it would show you ads for other Kindle books or other things that you could download from Kindle.
I mean, that makes sense, right? So they're just cross marketing their own stuff. That's understandable from Amazon's perspective. It's their device, their ecosystem, blah, blah, blah. And naturally, they want to try to push as many products as possible of theirs into, the consumer's hands to kind of expand their ecosystem within their kind of area.
Yeah.
But again, talking about completely third-party ads that potentially they're getting paid for, and you're just being force-fed, is a completely different story. That's just the way I feel.
Yeah, I was just pulled up like what Kindles look like these days. I haven't seen a Kindle in a long time. So it is still a thing. So you can buy a lock screen ad supported version of the Kindle for $89.99. If you decide that you don't want the ads, it's going to cost you $109.99. But the thing is, talking again about sort of like the what we might expect. So there is multiple ways that this could play out here in the US. Now the idea is, so Glance is a subsidiary of InMobi, which is a big ad technology giant. The idea that TechCrunch is reporting is that they're going to engage with wireless carriers in the US, because anything that's sort of in the mobile phone space in the US requires sort of like carriers to be involved, because a large part of the retail of cell phones here in the US still happens through carriers and carrier stores. And I think the idea is they're looking for carriers to have a secondary or additional revenue platform for phones sold by carriers. Specifically, if you buy a wireless plan from a US carrier, depending on, what tier plan you're in, you typically get a free phone from the carrier. If you pay for a really expensive unlimited data plan that costs, $30, $40, $50 a month, it's you typically, they offer like a flagship phone, like, to the,
But you
to the
got to
user.
lock in, right? You got to lock in for like 2 years.
Yeah, you got to lock in, and there's all kinds of stuff like that. But if there's carriers are pretty. They're willing to give you free phones just to switch over. Like if you go from AT&T to T-Mobile or whatever, and they usually give away like low or mid tier phones. Most of them tend to be Androids compared to iPhones, just because Androids are available in a much wider segment of pricing markets or whatever. So I have a feeling that there's like this idea that if you're giving the phone away anyway, you might as well start slapping ads on it, or offer the Amazon style discounts on the phones, right? But it is obviously anti-consumer if the consumer doesn't see a monetary benefit and is being shown ads anyway. So this kind of ad, and this ad creep's been happening in the consumer electronics space for quite a bit. And I think the most annoying one is TVs, as you might know. Even buying, maybe except for like Samsung flagship QLED displays or whatever, but if you buy like a mid-tier TV these days, and if you connect it to the internet, chances are you will see some form of ads. I've seen videos on Reddit of like, certain like mid to low tier TV brands that have video ads, like that show up when you change channels, and the top tier brands can show ads in the menu or ads in banner ads and stuff like that.
Ads in the menu, ads in the app selection area.
Yep.
That's seen. But that's kind of ridiculous. Like, so going back to the bit about Kindle, right? And this is something you were talking about earlier as well. Like the use case for a Kindle is very different to a phone. Yeah. And you're not expecting or using up your lock screen space for notifications on a Kindle generally.
Exactly.
At all. Actually, not even generally. It's just you're not, right? So on a phone, you want as much real estate as possible. And the whole point of Glance was to glance at your phone and check if you've got any notifications. And if what you're instead seeing is ads, it kind of defeats the entire purpose. I don't know if this is getting blown out of proportion just because the way the articles reported or the way they've marketed their content or their marketing content is right now. Yeah. Because see, Google probably doesn't want to detract too much away from their Android experience either, just because of Glance. Yeah. Now, if what we're saying is based on your hypothesis is cheaper or freebie phones are going to have this inbuilt. That's going to be a pretty big segment of the market, at least in the US, because let's face it, that's what the majority of people have, right? And if that's the case, Google's shooting themselves in the foot, being that this is also a Google-backed company. Yeah, they're shooting themselves in the foot, saying that, hey, if everybody starts buying up these phones that they know are Android and all going to be experiencing similar things, they're all going to migrate away to iOS eventually. Right. So next time they want to recommend a phone, they're not going to recommend Android, regardless if it's flagship, if it's unlocked, if it's Samsung, whatever it is. Right. They're going to be going complete anti-Android. Okay. I mean, it's just this. Yeah. I mean, so like I agree with you, but at the same time, seems extremely unlikely that it'll come out on Android flagships or the Pixel. And we know that Samsung's been obviously trying to push a lot of like Samsung related stuff back in even on flagships back in the day. Samsung bloat is insane, right?
Yeah, exactly. So because if you buy a Samsung phone in India, and if you like, if I remember correctly, like on many Samsung Galaxy devices, if you swipe right on your lock screen, it just opens Samsung TV by default, and then the default channel is Republic TV. Like, like I remember seeing this on, I remember seeing this on, and I was really annoyed, and I tried to find ways that you could disable it.
I thought swipe left was Bixby, or whatever the assistant did.
Yeah, Bixby. Well, Bixby had its own button, if you remember.
That was eventually.
Older. But no, if I remember correctly, on my dad's S8 when he updated it, it was not even lock screen. I think it was your main screen. If you swipe right, and you get the widget screen, for example, right? The default widget screen on Samsung is Samsung TV, and immediately starts a live feed of Republic TV. Like, it's pretty insane. Yeah. So
they did that with the tablets as well, but it wasn't TV. It was this application called Flipboard.
Flipboard,
it was a feed app.
Yeah,
it's a feed app. I mean, that's useful actually, but
Flipboard's not bad.
Yeah, it's not bad. But yeah, it was kind of part of the deal.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, even Apple does this. So when you swipe right on iOS devices, it'll show you default widgets. One of which is the Apple News app, and ads can be injected in between the feed for Apple News, which is pretty standard. But again, that is not as egregious as like having lock screen ads, right? So we'll see how this plays out. It's going to be interesting. But yeah, my hunch is that it's going to be mid-tier / free phones, possibly showing up on some kind of ad-supported and some sort of ad-supported scheme. If you buy a phone with with that express sort of like consent, I don't know how they'll take it from the users. It's probably expected that you won't be able to disable it. This will be very.
No, but I think a logical way they might implement this is the way you said, is based on pricing.
And
the same way that you showcase Kindle over there was a slightly discounted price if you agree to the ad-supported version.
Yeah.
I think that's the only way they can do it, right? Because then they have complete knowledge of contracts, and then you're signing up for a contract. And henceforth, you're signing up for the EULA.
But again, slippery slope. So then that's just the starting, and then we'll see more and more ad creep, and we'll see what happens.
For sure.
It'll be annoying. Let's see. What are the other tech topics? Oh, yeah. So Apple has this cool new feature that's coming up in iOS 16, which is like a high grade lockdown mode from iOS 16 onwards. This was again reported by TechCrunch and I think announced by Apple. So the idea is there's a lot of really extensive sort of military grade spyware that's used to, spy on, say, journalists and activists and things like that. And the biggest one is NSO Group's Pegasus, for example. So they use exploits that are non-disclosed, so zero-day exploits that they keep in their arsenal, and then they're sold to these big, three-letter agencies for different governments to use as they please, right? So typically you would use them on spy targets or surveillance targets and things like that. But then many countries are increasingly using them against their own citizens and possibly against, dissidents and journalists. We've seen this happen in India as well with Pegasus. So Apple is now announcing that there's going to be a new lockdown mode that basically allows you to kind of disable most of like the convenience features on your phone. So if you're like super paranoid, or if you believe that you're being targeted by different sort of agencies and they may resort to these kind of like spyware attacks, then lot of apps, websites, features will be very severely limited, and some experiences will be completely unavailable. It'll be interesting if it like disables something like face unlock or Face ID. But it's I mean, this is obviously not for everybody. It's for people who are under active threat of surveillance. But it's a good start. I mean,
I see the direction. I see the use case, all that stuff. But ideally, what they should have just done is brick your phone into one of those little old Nokias. That's what it is. It's call it Nokia mode, and that's it.
Yeah. So I mean, like there are many organizations that kind of talk about if you're a high profile activist and you keep talking, you keep saying things critical of the government, then you generally tend to be a target. Sadly, in India, over the last couple of years, this is becoming increasingly common. If you are an outspoken critic of the government, then the government will try to engage with you through different channels, whether it's whether it's visits from the enforcement bureau or raids or things like that. But digital surveillance is also part of it, and there is documented history of the Indian agencies going after activists. I mean, we don't need to go into it. So the threat is there. It's not just India. It's there all over the world. It's there in the US as well. The number one sort of thing that people sort of recommend is, throw away your smartphone, go for a dumb phone, for which even the US has a couple of other things. So last year, I think it was disclosed that US law enforcement agencies spy on targets using something called stingrays. A stingray is a fake cell phone tower. So like you can drive up to a surveillance target with your unmarked van and deploy a stingray, and the idea is a stingray is like a man in the middle attack. It's like a tower in between the tower, right, that will just log additional details. So you should be able to get some points of data from a dumb phone. It's vastly less than like a smartphone. This is good. Ideally, I would have wanted to see a plausible deniability feature. So I don't know if you know about this. The idea is like, say you are in a compromised situation, in the sense that you're either in a raid or the cops have decided to seize your phone, and this happens in India to ordinary citizens, by the way. Like Hyderabad police were stopping random people on the street and asking people to unlock their phones so that they could look through WhatsApp messages for words like ganja and stuff and weed. Like this actually happened in Hyderabad. They just look for people with long hair or Bob Marley t-shirts, and they're like, okay, give me your phone, let me unlock your phone. Okay. And then obviously this is not constitutional, obviously, but then that doesn't matter to a lot of cops back in India. So plausible deniability mode would have been
try asking for your lawyer at that point, right?
Yeah. So plausible deniability mode would be really cool if you could have it on. I believe there are a lot of Android ROMs that support this. So the idea is if a authority forces you to unlock your phone, type in a different passcode.
Code would get you into
it'll show it'll show a different it'll basically boot the phone into a different a different environment altogether. Everything will change. So plausible deniability would have been good. Yeah. Plausible deniability would have been good. It reminds me of that really stupid WhatsApp forward that a lot of people were forwarding, like all the uncles were forwarding back in India. If you're at an ATM and people are robbing you at gunpoint, enter your PIN code backwards and it'll inform the police. To be clear, that doesn't work. If your PIN code is like 1221, what are you gonna do? It's like, yeah, exactly. But yeah, ideally, I think Apple should have a plausible deniability mode. But at the same time, then if Apple announces a plausible deniability mode, then the cops also find out that it exists. So,
well, how are you going to prove it? You can only ask so much.
Yeah.
How are you going to prove it?
This is a good time to kind of
enter it many times, wipe phone.
Yeah. This is a good time to shout out two major organizations, if people who are concerned about privacy. For the US, EFF is excellent. They are the people who are the sort of the first line of defense against digital surveillance and privacy, and they have a bunch of sort of privacy handbooks. So if you are in a situation and you want to know what your rights are in terms of can the cops seize your phone, can the cops seize your personal devices or computers or whatever, and then what are the rules that they're supposed to follow, what rules do you have to follow, and things like that. They generally have a huge sort of they have different sort of easy to read guides about these things. And in India, the Internet Freedom Foundation, or IFF, they're a really cool organization. They started with the Save the Internet Foundation for net neutrality. They actively and successfully lobbied against Facebook trying to be the sort of like
I remember this. This was a couple of years ago.
The free basics sort of like plan that they had for a limited internet rolling out to all phones. So IFF campaigns against digital surveillance and things like that, use of facial recognition, and also campaigns against random internet shutdowns, which is a big problem in India, right? Like, UPSC exam is happening, okay, shut down the internet in this district so that applicants can't copy on their cell phones. But people don't think about the circumstances. Like, hey, guess what? You just disabled all UPI payments for the for the district as well, right? Like, so. Yeah, just a shout out to both these organizations. They do good work, and if you have some spare change, they would, it's good to donate to them because they actively fight for these causes. Speaking of which, apparently another big news that came out of China is that a huge amount of data relating to Chinese citizens apparently leaked 2 days ago. We're talking about like 1 billion plus.
Naturally.
No, but that's a substantial amount of, like, it's almost everybody, right? Like 1 billion plus.
Exactly.
1 billion plus names, phone numbers, addresses that came out of a Chinese police database, apparently leaked out, and then it was approximately 23 terabytes in size. The group that had it tried to sell it, but then I think they were intimidated, and then hasn't been sold since.
It's pretty cheap for a ransom.
Yeah. And apparently the leak came out because there was a government developer that wrote a tech blog on the Chinese software development network CSDN, and literally just left all the credentials open to this like Alibaba cloud endpoint. Like, here's the access ID, access key, just left in the blog, like source code or whatever. And then 1 billion records of private citizens' data. Like, the sad part being, well, this was
that guy doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah. The sad part is, like, we may look at this and laugh, but like in India, we are not much better off. In fact,
no, we're not.
Leaking in India is the norm. If you do a Google search for Aadhaar and then file type :PDF, I did this a couple of years ago. Just the number of government websites that just throw up random PDF lists of people and their Aadhaar numbers and addresses. Even now, if you search, you will find it. Like, it's just
exactly. There's no security in social security.
The only saving grace I can think of in India is for most important things that involve an Aadhaar number or a credit card number or a debit card number.
It's an OTP thing.
Yeah, there's a second factor authentication, but it still is super valuable data. That's
I'm telling you, just giving away your Aadhaar details gives everybody your permanent address, everything.
Yeah, pretty much. It's annoying and it's irritating, and there's frankly not much we can do about it. It's very sad.
Exactly.
Anyway,
what else we got?
Moving on to other news. Guess what? Elon Musk is not going to buy Twitter. He's back, and he's like, no thanks.
He's back with the past 2 weeks having a flurry of news articles about it, including the latest one that he backed out from the Twitter deal.
Yep. Also, apparently, he has had twins with one of his top executives at Neuralink. And then he has...
What's more interesting than the article itself is what ridiculous name is he giving this time?
True. And at the same time, apparently, when this news leaked, he actually tweeted saying that I'm doing my best to help the underpopulation crisis. A collapsing birth rate is the biggest danger for civilization thus far. Which is kind of a dog whistle for this...
It's almost supervillain dialogues, right? Like,
yeah. This is actually even more insidious because this is like a very popular right-wing theory here in the US, which is the... I forget what it's called. It's like white replacement. The idea that, the white population is going down and we're being replaced or whatever. So, yeah, He's just masking it by by saying underpopulation crisis. Yeah, at this point it was just nuts. But anyway, him refusing to buy Twitter, now backing out of the Twitter deal, is almost no surprise to anyone. And it's just at this point, it's just a game.
I gotta tell you, we called it. We called it 3 months ago, and that's exactly what happened, right? It was just hype, and that's it. Like, he knows how to play news stories, and this is what's happening.
Well, he knows how to keep the news cycle engaged about him, and then he knows how to profit out of that, right? Like, I mean, he was able to sell a bunch of Twitter stock. He definitely made some money. I'm sure Twitter is not as valuable as it was when he sold it back then. Yeah, at this point, it's just ridiculousness coming out of that whole area of the internet. I was hearing a couple of pundits kind of talk about this whole saga, and it seems so Twitter has a credibility issue with a certain segment of the population here in the US, especially after Trump was deplatformed following Jan 6th. So Twitter is like a very common sort of like right-wing talking point of like, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So Elon became like a right-wing champion when he said that I'm going to buy Twitter and I'm going to make it fully free speech and blah, without necessarily knowing what that entails and what are the sort of like legal ramifications and things like that. But this is going to be interesting. There's because more. It's
speaking of same topics.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So Truth Social.
Yeah, of course. Yes.
More stuff on that. Trump leaves the board of his own social media platform before Feds it.
Yeah. That plus, I think, with the January 6th inquiry stuff that's happening, maybe he's trying to reduce his exposure, like legal exposure to different things. So that's another whole can of worms. But I mean, the other sort of like conspiracy theory angle is Elon orchestrated all of this to kind of like take down Twitter in some sense, like hype it up and then cause a bubble to burst, cause people inside Twitter, cause some chaos. Like, he's basically a chaos agent for Twitter, right? Cause chaos in the company, kind of like delegitimize it, cause issues for them, blah, blah, blah. That's what I think. The other thing is Twitter will probably not take this sitting down. There's going to be a bunch of lawyers.
There will be litigious about it.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll probably see this play out for months, if not years. It's definitely going to be interesting. But, I think that's all we should talk about. It's just, at this point, it's just...
I mean, it's benefiting both parties at this point. They're both in the news always.
Yep. Yeah. True. I guess.
Good or bad, but people are talking about it.
As they say, right? There's no such thing as bad publicity.
Yeah, it's almost like, hey, nobody talks about Facebook anymore as a social media platform, right? So nobody talks about being on Facebook or things happening on Facebook.
Yeah.
Well, ever since the 2016 elections, nobody's really cared about what's going on in Facebook, right? 2016, sure, there was a hype about how it influenced the votes and blah, blah, blah. After that, not much noise around Facebook. But again, Facebook's evolved into Meta now, so they're doing different things. And we have more on that later as well.
Yeah. Speaking of Meta and sort of like Metaverse engagement, we covered this company a couple of weeks back in our podcast, which is Mojo Vision. And they were planning to have sort of these AR interfaces that are, basically glasses plus, which is... and this one's even more crazy because this is not even glasses. This is contact.
It's in your eye.
It's literally in your eyes. And, this seemed like sort of science fiction-y because of just the physical challenges of, incorporating all of those electronics and putting them in such a sensitive location on your body, which is your eyes. But apparently the CEO, the CEO literally kind of tested out. Yeah, he tested a prototype of this on eye and wrote a blog post about it. And this may be closer than we think. So I
don't know, man. It's still so freaky. I mean, maybe it's because me personally, I don't like contact lenses. It always weirds me out.
Yeah.
Like going in your eyeball and then squishing something out.
Yeah.
How would this work? Like all of those are mostly, I want to say water based. right? And that's how it's okay to be on your eye. How does this work when it has circuitry and chips and a display or micro display?
So from what I read
When
in
you
the
squish it, if you try to grab it out,
Yeah, no, that's interesting.
one-
From what I'm reading off of the article is like, so stuff like this is they're kind of relying on existing and inventing new technologies that are related to sort of medical grade electronics. So, like pacemakers and implants and things like that. This is obviously even more crazy, so they have to do a lot more engineering.
it's sensitive, yeah.
The good thing is that it doesn't look like they can release this without FDA clearance here in the US, at least.
That's a good
So that's definitely a good thing. So they're going to have to work with government regulators on like how they can sort of do this. So yes, so the article says that they would need FDA approval, and they're going to start clinical trials to kind of figure out what is the sort of the safety period of like how long you can wear this, and and the CEO
questions on this.
the CEO himself says that they're 10 years away.
Yeah, what? I would
believe
be surprised.
it.
Right?
Yeah, I believe it, especially because the fact that they need to do clinical studies and things like that. So
exactly, and it's got to be in the eye, dust, the circuitry itself. Don't want to electrocute your eye at some point.
Yeah.
Orientation of display, right?
Yeah.
That's a very important one. Like obviously, circuitry is not going to move around by itself. So there's got to be a way that you can figure out how to line up the display. And I would imagine there's probably some military or defense implementations of similar things before it actually comes to us.
Yeah, absolutely. This will be interesting. Given that, so the whole AR market is there've been lots of ups and downs, right? Like it started with Google Glass, which was way too early and way too prototypey for people.
Expensive.
Expensive.
$1,500.
Yeah. But then again, that was sort of developer stuff, right? Yeah. Then Microsoft tried to make and you could argue still trying to make a major play into sort of like integrating it into a much more lucrative vertical, which is sort of enterprise stuff, like integrated with like civil engineers and architects, people who have to do on-site work and things like that. And they've been doing trials with like different sort of industrial partners and manufacturers to kind of come up with these killer applications for AR, but nothing that's been like headline grabbing so far. That it's so there's obviously a lot of usability kinks and quirks that have to be worked out before people can conclusively say, whoa, this is amazing and I need this for my business. And then
one of the biggest ones of the usability factor would be the actual frame rates and refresh rate, right? So that's it's very important. I mean, VR and AR both. VR more than AR because that you don't have any other kind of frame of reference. You're going to get cyber sickness, but AR, right? So I can see using this potentially for all those use cases, even industrial or not, right?
Yeah.
But at some point, it's going to be very annoying or headachy.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's not just frame rates, but even coming up with an interface, like literally a UI that allows you to shift your focus or perception between your real world task and your AR task, right? Doing that in a seamless manner that feels natural.
I think
we've seen the same
cool idea.
Yeah,
right?
no, go ahead.
No. The cool idea would be like what you just said, right? So following what you said is creating that kind of environment, right? So even if it's AR and you're kind of blending both or mixed reality.
Yep.
They should still have the capability of giving that kind of bokeh effect of what's actually really happening. So there's a clear separation if you want it. And if that's tunable or adjustable, that's even better, right? Because some people would want that separate level of distinction between what they're trying to do in the AR space versus what's actually happening.
So the issue is, designing those interfaces, making sure that they are actually usable. Like there's a parallel to this, which is voice assistants, right? Like when they were launched, people were really impressed with the idea of, wow, like I can actually talk to a device and, have it answer things and to some extent, some of those tasks are doable, but that the interface, the UX for voice assistants are still very clunky, right? Like, you can't have a natural conversation with those, and now they've just become glorified timers.
It's linear, and they're egg timers or like turn off my lamp devices.
Yeah, exactly.
Or play me some music. Tell me the weather. That's it. I mean, they're doing the same things that they were doing 5 to 10 years ago.
Yeah,
like it's much more affordable now. That's a different thing. But essentially, I was watching. We watch Friends a lot and reruns. I was watching the episode with. What's his name?
The paleontologist, Ross?
Boyfriend. Monica's boyfriend.
Richard.
Pete.
Pete. Yeah.
Pete.
The UFC guy.
The rich dude. UFC guy.
Yeah.
The ultimate champion.
Yep.
The one with his episode, the episode within in his house, the display, everything's voice command.
Right.
I'm like, see, this was in the 90s, and they thought about all this, and it's come to life, and this is happening now. So we gotta wait another 30 years for something else. Well, again, the space at which technology kind of builds on is much quicker nowadays, but still.
So
it's stuff. What I was getting is it's stuff that people have thought about like forever, right?
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
New stuff.
Absolutely. So I wanted to bring up 2 points on that. So one was there's actually a really cool research paper in so the area that deals with UI UX and interactions of humans with computers is literally called HumanComputer Interaction HCI. So the academic space of research in that is pretty huge. There was a very cool paper that I read a couple of years ago in the academic space. It was literally the researcher basically took transcripts from Star Trek: The Next Generation, and then took all the scenes where the different members of Enterprise were talking to the ship's computer, and then kind of classifying that, and then talking about what human expectations from these voice assistants are, and like how we can get to that mode. And in fact, we are actually pretty close to possibly getting there because of large language models. So Google's Lambda model, for example, and this was like a news article that became very, it got a lot of traction in the news, right? But about sentience. You can think about like the big application of these large language models is literally for voice assistants. Like you have a much more, you can have much more intelligent responses and better understanding of tasks if you have these larger models rather than these sort of like hokey models which use mostly rules and things like that to kind of figure out what you need. But so until then we'll have glorified egg timers. But back to glasses and AR, what actually I believe what everybody's waiting for is what Apple's play in this space is going to be. Because it's been long rumored that they're working on it, and it's not just rumors, like just from the number of like job descriptions and applications of AR related stuff that Apple's been hiring people from optics. They've actually poached a lot of people from Meta and sort of the Quest teams and things like that. People want to see what Apple's play on the AR space will be, because Apple has this very interesting position in terms of people that are willing to be beta testers because they're in the Apple ecosystem, right? But also Apple somehow has this kind of like it has this ability, like this niche of like really they don't release technologies unless they're kind of really confident about like they've done this quite a bit. I mean, you can argue that they have not done it always, but the second is they really want to hone in on a super killer app before they make a big announcement. So I think that's like people are looking at this as being possibly to the level of like like an iPad announcement, right? If they have a real killer app and they show a really convincing sort of demo, and they also have some of the best UI UX experienced people in the world. I think that's the thing, right? That a lot of people are just kind of waiting to see what Apple's UI UX AR play is going to be. And, people kind of expected something WWDC from all the sort of rumors, but apparently it's still in the oven.
Yeah.
September
It's
maybe, or
definitely
maybe
gonna take
next
a while.
year. Yeah, or September or maybe next year. I mean, just based on leaks
No,
and
they've been
rumors and things
building
like
up to
that.
this, and this
Yeah.
is what Apple kind of does, right? So
Yeah,
they've
yeah.
been building up to this. They've got all these new sensors on the new iPhones.
Yep.
They've been kind of introducing AR very slowly, very incrementally
Yep.
over the new iOS updates. So definitely there is a long-term roadmap there, right? So there is a long-term roadmap, and maybe it's just that there is limitation in what they can offer with current gen devices,
Yeah.
that they have to phase out some of the older ones so that they can offer it to a whole new set of customers, right?
Yeah.
So maybe it's that. Maybe it's just that, like you said, there has to be a very widely used use case that all iPhone users probably can't live without eventually,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I would imagine the first thing would be something within iMessage for sure, right?
Yeah. So iMessage.
Within their ecosystem is going to be top priority.
So one of my favorite current sort of AR experiences that you can have. It works on my iPhone. It probably works on a bunch of Android phones as well. It works really well on the iPhone. It's not even an Apple experience. It's Google Maps Street View navigation with AR. Works really nicely in the US. So basically, if you open up Google Maps and you say, I want to go from point A to point B, then you hit a button that says live view. You can literally hold up your phone, and then it'll overlay your phone camera image with your directions, and it'll give you turn by turn with the phone camera image. And it works really well in the US because of how well mapped out US streets are.
Everything's mapped out, yeah.
The problem is, in the US, there is apparently a safety issue with this, which means people are just looking in their phones and walking and then tripping or falling and getting injured. So
I would imagine this is also a privacy concern there, with people being detected when they shouldn't be.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, to some extent, yeah. But then again, people are filming TikToks and whatever. But anyway, and those are actually getting shared, right? So, but anyway, the thing is, like, I think if like you said, if it's on glass, if it's overlaid information, so that you're not looking at a video feed on your phone, you're actually seeing, and then the information is only overlaid on your screen, that's a much more natural experience, and they don't have to have the the long-winded way was, I was trying to say, there's a safety feature, which means if you start walking more than a few feet per second, then the screen gets blacked out.
Oh, okay.
And then there's a message that says, please look at the road while you walk. And then when you stop and then you move your phone around, and again, it'll restart the live view again. So you see, it's a cool experience, but it's not fluid, right? And it's intentionally not fluid because of a safety issue, right? So,
yeah, that's the right way to do things. Otherwise you have
exactly.
a bunch of people walking around like
and
this.
And then litigation, and then lawsuit. It's all legal, right? Like, so, yeah. But I would see like an integration with Apple Maps as being the first play for these glasses. You could a lot of Apple Watch
is probably the easiest kind of sell.
A lot of Apple Watch functionality, I think, is the second play that they'll be looking at. So we're talking about sort of like when you're doing a
steps, directions, calories, blah blah blah.
Exactly, right. It'll be like, wow, check out this amazing AR experience.
Meetings, agenda, calendar, weather. So all the stuff that's been going on for 5 to 10 years that everybody has, but just in your glasses.
Yeah.
In your line of sight, no. See, it's slow, right? I'll tell you what. Let me link this with something that I've experienced recently, right? So I only got a proper smartwatch recently, right? So I did. Well, the early one was the hybrid one, which had still an analog face, and it did things and moved. Yeah. The thing that I've experienced with a smartwatch is I touch my phone way less now.
Yes, that's correct.
Way less.
And
it's not even like I've transferred that usage to the watch and I'm fiddling with the watch.
No,
it's just because now I have the option to go like this and see notification and not important.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was the big selling point of smartwatches. Yes, notifications. Yep. So doing that in a way that is equally as non-intrusive, but straight up in your eyes. Like that's going to be a challenge, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing, right? I mean, the first thing they put in there is a D&D button. Right?
True.
You just like have a serious talk, serious conversation, and all these messages keep popping up.
Yeah. So, but again, back to Apple, like if any company can do it, I think Apple can, because the way Apple manages. So I've owned Android smartwatches before, and Android smartwatches are, Samsung's much better than Wear OS. Wear OS is very it's still in the oven, basically. Google hasn't decided what they want their UI to look like. But the iOS Apple Watches are so much more mature in terms of their UI 100%. And like, how they do it. I feel like 100%. they're going to take a lot of their sort of like complications, visual language, and take it into their AR glasses.
No, but this is the same thing, right? This is the same thing as the iPhone story again.
Yeah.
They have two different variants, or well, two different sizes, and then a couple of different variants just to kind of dilute, so to say, their OS so that the hardware is capable of running it. So that's the only thing that Apple has to deal with. Well, Google, they don't have their own watch. Well, they're coming up with the Pixel Watch soon. But that's not going to be the end of it, right? So Samsung's just shifted over to Android Wear as well.
Wear OS,
Right. So Wear OS, correct. So the thing is, it's not a controlled environment where they can just be like, this is what we're doing for the next 10 years.
Correct.
They can't do that. They're not going to get much buy-in. It has to remain that kind of customizable, blah, 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 that it has always been. And it really, one good thing is you have consumers getting a lot of options. The second thing is different price points. Right? Yeah, you have the cheapest Android phone and the most expensive one, essentially doing the same thing. But it's a status thing at that point, right? It's like buying a Hublot watch. It tells the time.
Exactly. That's true. Anyway, we'll see. But that'll definitely be exciting news to look forward to whenever it happens. In the next few months, next couple of years, who knows? All right. And then the final news, tech news topic for this week is, again, some dumping on the Meta's Metaverse. So Meta had a digital wallet called Novi, which was using a cryptocurrency, and I believe that's the cryptocurrency is called DM. But anyway, all of this is moot because it's shut down.
I'm going to be honest with you. I never knew this existed, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of people actually kind of announced that, wait a minute, Meta had a digital wallet. Like, it makes sense that they would have a digital wallet for the Metaverse because, the whole idea is transactions, right? But
not necessarily for cryptocurrency.
Yeah, exactly. So, God knows what the remaining of the, sort of like Meta's play is going to be in this situation. And this is...
I mean, this was very un-Facebook-like, right? To not advertise or push this in your face all through last year, if they've decided to shut it down now after only a year.
Well,
usually whenever they've come out with stuff, they push it like really hard.
That's true, but at the same time, they haven't really pushed the Metaverse itself that hard, right? It's still kind of like a beta.
It is. That's why they haven't pushed it, right? So they don't want that many people on it when it's kind of shoddy. Like they don't want to create like first-time user experience that's crap for millions of people when they can control it to people who are really curious about it, right? So once it gets better, they expand. It's like the first version of Facebook. We weren't on first version of Facebook. We were on 2006-07 version of Facebook.
Yes, correct. Right? Yeah. We were on
and then we didn't have much to complain about. We were like, oh, cool, wall. Let's type on each other's wall for no apparent reason.
For no apparent reason, exactly.
Right. So, and pokes and super pokes and everything later, that's all gone now.
Yep.
So it's the same sort of thing. They don't want to put out their like first level kind of first version of whatever they're trying to do. Is probably the case, right? I mean, ideally they've made it clear that they want to go in that direction. So they're probably not going to back out like the wallet, but it's going to come. It's going to come.
It's also
but it's going to come.
I think there was some kind of exposure that Facebook had, like financial exposure, and then the sinking crypto market just caused them to just hit the panic button. And were like, yeah, we're out.
Yeah.
Let's just drop our losses while we can.
Tapping out.
Yeah, because the idea that Facebook was planning.
Yeah, the timing is hilarious, right?
Exactly. So that's the other sort of like thing that could have happened, which was, to have this digital wallet be involved with a certain cryptocurrency. Facebook would have bought into that cryptocurrency in terms of like having some sort of like Genesis funds or whatever, right? Like some they would have been holding on to some portion of that cryptocurrency to ensure its stability or whatever, right? And then suddenly when the price tanked, then they realized, oh, we are exposed, and we need to stem the blood loss, right? We need to cut off the arm to prevent the gangrene from spreading, or so to speak. So they just went, panic button, we're out. And that's probably what happened.
But like I said, nothing to lose because I didn't know about this anyway.
Exactly. But speaking of which, actually, since you mentioned that, the other big news here in the US was that Voyager is filing for bankruptcy. And Voyager is a huge crypto sort of marketplace. And they actually were one of the big ones here because a lot of people dealt in stocks and crypto on Robinhood, which is one of the biggest apps here in the US. But Voyager is pretty, like, definitely in the top 5. I don't know exactly where it was. And now that they announced their bankruptcy, it's like they've limited customer withdrawals. So customer accounts are frozen.
Out?
No, the accounts are frozen. And then customers may not be able to fully recover their crypto assets. Because it's really serious, right? So this is pretty bad.
See, this is the problem. This is exactly the problem that I always have is you talk about all this thing that it's some kind of divine currency that you can decentralize and all these things it's unique, it's all yours, all that stuff. In the end, the bottom line is some wallet is holding it. If they decide to shut shop and leave, you're done.
Yeah. So here's the thing. So these companies like Voyager is essentially a crypto lender, and they were holding customer wallets, for example. That's the other thing. Like if you really believe in crypto, then you should be possessing your own wallets. Like you should have your keys with you. You should just be able to take your wallet and then register the transaction on some arbitrary blockchain, right? Like crypto enthusiasts will tell you that this is the wrong way to do it. Don't put money in Voyager. Instead, buy the crypto directly and then trade on chain through a different exchange, but then have possession of your wallet, right?
But that's the thing, right? Not everybody's skilled or knowledgeable about how to do that.
Exactly. So basically, crypto markets are
pretty damn messed up.
Yeah, it's really messed up, and we can expect this to happen.
Like a bank telling you, "Hey, we have your money. We ain't giving it back."
So you see, that's the thing. Like people love, like crypto bros love to, quote unquote, dump all over traditional banking and things like that. I mean, stuff like this has happened 100 years ago with normal banks, which is why we have rules and regulations in place for these things. In the US, if you open a bank account and put money in a physical bank, you typically, if it's a proper bank, your bank is FDIC insured, which means that if the bank goes belly up, your money is still guaranteed by the government. Right?
Yeah.
Similar rules exist in India as well. Like the RBI regulates the whole industry just to make sure that things don't go belly up.
Scheduled bank.
Yeah, exactly. If it's a scheduled bank, your deposit should be safe, right? We have had a lot of banks go belly up in India, but people don't lose their money. Most of the time, at least. But if you put money in other sort of like risky ventures, you could, and you should treat crypto exactly as that. It's a completely risky venture, like to the point where your accounts can get frozen. So you've got all the disadvantages of traditional banking with none of the advantages of crypto now. All of a sudden,
that's the thing, right? All the other channels or avenues of investment, if you're going to invest in stocks, right? When the market is tanking, just like everybody else knows, probably not as soon as the stock bros on the financial street, but you'll know before it completely tanks, so you can pull out. You have the option. But this is something like, hey, we're not going to tell you anything, and suddenly we're just going to be, okay, everything's on hold.
Yeah. Oh well. Anyway, so moving on to automotive news for this week, we actually have a flurry of announcements from both the US and India. And I wanted to start with some of the big automotive announcements from the US. And the big one is Hyundai just announced the Ionic 6, which is an electric sedan. And they're planning to have the actual premiere in July. So this is going to be interesting when it comes out. And, Hyundai is making a very strong electric play globally.
It's true. It is also making a very strong design play.
Yeah.
By the looks of it. I don't know what they're up to, man. Honestly, it's got Panamera vibes. It's got CLA vibes. Or
True.
vibes.
True. It's got those Merc lines, right? Like especially the backside. Yeah.
That whole kind of curved. Thing. It's got a built-in spoiler, blah 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 blah. But the thing is, it's really the Ionic 5 underneath, isn't it? It's
right.
That's what the entire drivetrain, powertrain, whatever you want to call it, is.
I see.
Is the Ionic 5. So essentially, what they've upgraded is everything except for that. And I think that, this is where it is. If you develop as a manufacturer in electric platform, you can pretty much do whatever you want with it. It's skateboard, so you can plop anybody you want. It's like the old ladder on frame chassis SUVs, right? You can plop anybody on it.
Actually, even easier than ladder on frame, because you don't have to make any sort of design decisions based on your engine and transmission and stuff, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun that, at least if people come out with interesting options. It's the thing about this design. I'm going to go off on a tangent with this.
Yeah, go for it.
Is that it's every quarter panel looks good individually. But somehow when you zoom out and look at the entire thing, it looks so weird.
Actually, I think that's literally what they're doing in this video too. They're just showing you the individual quarter panels, but not showing you the entire car. Say it's just quarter panels. There we go.
Matrix LEDs.
Yep, that's cool. Those are cool. You're really right. Like especially the rear portion has this real Merc GLC vibes, right? Like no GLA vibes. I forget which one.
CLA
vibes. Yes, correct. CLA vibes on the back. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there you go. That's a CLA right there.
Yeah, that's true. It could be confused for a CLA. Lights. Yep. So that's supposed to be the Ionic 6. And
Ionic 6.
Ionic 6. Nice. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. What's Hyundai's play in India? Remind me again. They are launching CBU.
They're still doing. Yeah, they're bringing out the CBU Ionic 5.
Okay.
It's a little behind on the EV6 from Kia in terms of timing. The EV6 is already announced, already open for bookings, probably already booked out, by the way. It's only 100 pieces.
Okay.
It's probably already sold out.
Yeah, those usually tend to get sold out, yeah.
But yeah, the Ionic 5 is a little behind. They still have the Kona, the first generation Kona.
Oh, right.
The first generation Kona electric is still available. In fact, I saw one the other day, they brought it to where I live. They had a road show here.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, it's a pretty big community. So they bring, dealers bring their new cars to show them off. Anyway, so the Kona was here. They've got a new facelift for the Venue.
Yes, the new facelift, yeah.
And that's really the size they should be targeting is that sub 4 meter EV. They should really play that Nexon market as soon as possible.
Yeah, because
they should just take what they have with the Kona and the R&D cost that's already probably brought back, and then plop that kind of into the Venue chassis. Well, not exactly, but you know what I mean. Like that size of vehicle, and then introduce it for the Indian market. That's how they're going to get the ball rolling. Right?
Yep.
If they do that, instantly Maruti is going to be like, "Yo, we got to put something out as well."
Yeah, they'll be on
number one. Is going to be number 2.
They'll be in the defensive at that point. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
The other big announcement is Fisker is now taking pre-orders for the Ocean One SUV. So Fisker is the company famous for the Karma, I think. The Fisker Karma, was it?
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah. And we spoke about Fisker a couple of episodes ago, how they've set up shop in Hyderabad as well.
Oh, right.
Not necessarily to do manufacturing or anything of that sort. I think it's an R&D center.
R&D center,
but $5,000, that's a lot to commit for something that doesn't really have something you can touch and feel.
Yeah.
It's only the prototype.
Yeah. And production enters only in November. So, but I don't know if they'll have a press release saying that they we don't have any information on how many people bid this whatever requirement. I think so. The
people want to be unique. People have money. People want to be unique. They'll buy it. That's it.
That's
it's
true.
As simple as that. There's a buyer for everything you put out nowadays.
100%.
What I like is the Hummer EV. Oh, that thing has some real fancy features. Have you seen that thing crab walk?
Yeah, the crab walk for the Hummer EV. Yes, I did see that. It's nuts. Yeah, so there's definitely going to be it's a busy space, I think, in the next couple of years, right? For anything electric here in the US.
And like I said, this is all about manufacturing. Right? Once you figure out like some kind of manufacturing technique where they can switch up designs easily, then there's no stopping any kind of design coming out, right? I mean, only regulations of safety and blah, blah, blah. So as long as they keep kind of within those tolerances of crumple zones and making sure this the rigidity of the frame is correct and so on, they can put out different shapes all the time. So a lot of crazy EVs, coming out. More classic ones like the F-150 Lightning and the Rivian, and all those classic looking trucks. Nothing great about them. They're still going to play into people who want to move away from internal combustion engines, but then still want that retro or normal, to define normal kind of vehicle. Those are going to work for them.
The play Ford made with the F-150 Lightning is absolutely fantastic because
it's crazy. It's like all the contractors that ever lived just came together and said, "Hey, we want this," and they just did it.
And I think it'll be like one of those business case studies for a very long time to come because the F-150 trucker market, it's the
cult following, right?
Yeah. It's not
going to stop buying it.
It's a cult that's they have a separate ideology, right? The truck owners here in the US. There are a lot of them. I don't want to stereotype, but a lot of them are super pro ICE engines, want the most power possible. There are some of them are actively against environmental regulations. There are people who do coal rolling.
Same people doing coal rolling.
Yes, rolling coal. Exactly. Yeah, the same people who are doing.
Exactly what I was going to say. The coal rolling folk.
For Ford to design an electric vehicle for that segment of the market and then knock it out of the park, making people turn heads twice just because of the features that it brings on the table. That's just absolutely incredible, and I'm happy they did that.
It's so thought out.
Yeah, exactly.
That design, like even though it's not like impressive, it's not a Ferrari, it's not a Lamborghini, but it's so impressive in the thought that's been put in, right? In the function over form kind of objective that was there. It's really
exactly. I mean, they've been doing that. They're two major new designs that came out of Ford. Like one was obviously the F-150 and the other was the Bronco. Both of which I would tip my hat to them, like in terms of how they've taken that functional approach to design. And for both vehicles, really, I feel at least knock it out of the park. Like the Bronco is
Ford is really set in for a next era of their kind of days. They're not gonna lose. Just like some of the other manufacturers did, like Buick or Oldsmobile.
Exactly.
Right? They're not going to go down.
They look like they have this very clear purpose and a real clear idea of where they see the company.
Mustang Mach-E.
Yep.
It's a very bold choice to go away from a fastback and call something else a Mustang.
Yes, that's true. But it's
and 1 year, 2 years down the line, everybody's fine with it now. nobody really cared.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, people cared then, but you know, it didn't really impact anything. People
Yeah,
still buying both.
I saw a Mach-E on the roads the other day. It was pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Switching over to India. Govind, do you know what time it is? It's high time.
It's high time. It's high time. The high rider.
Yes.
No, you know what? This is something we've been always talking about, and I've always had this against Toyota, right?
Yes.
Why does Toyota not do enough for the Indian market, right?
Yeah.
They've had so much success with the Innova, and the Qualis before it,
and the Fortuner,
Corolla and all of that stuff,
and,
right?
and the Fortuner.
Fortuner, I mean, they're successful with the Fortuner, but it's not everybody's market.
No, it's not.
Not everybody.
It's a smaller market.
Builders are buying it.
Yeah,
It's only
exactly.
builders.
Yeah. Builders, politicians, the black money folks.
Those folks.
Yeah.
But this is going to be the car for the masses. I very strongly feel if they price this one right, with the features that it has, with the hybrid powertrain that it has, they're going to knock it out of the park. They're going to make enough and more sales to make up for whatever they've lost out on with the Yaris.
Yeah, they had so many of these missteps in the Indian market, right? They tried to chase the ultra cheap B segment sedans with the Etios. It basically became
But that
taxi.
worked for taxis.
Taxis, yeah. I mean, I guess
I see that with Toyota, right?
Yeah.
They like doing taxis.
They like doing fleet vehicles. That's true. Yeah. Even back in the Middle East, high Ace, for example, right?
They'd probably say they're chosen as fleet vehicles because they last, or they're sure. Yeah, that too. But still,
you know why I think this is a possible like winner for Toyota in the Indian market. I learned about.
Sorry, I couldn't help it.
Yeah, no, that was a perfectly typed one. But the reason why I think this might actually succeed is, usually I tell my dad about car releases in India. This one, my dad told me. So
well, he's in the Toyota game, so he's living the Toyota life.
Yeah, he usually does.
Your dad's got a weird mix of cars, a Merc and a Toyota.
That's true. But this one is actually I think they have real potential here. Hopefully they don't mess it up, and I hope they don't do the. Toyota has this habit of sneakily cost cutting on their vehicles, so that like
you mean like next gen?
No,
when the next model comes out, or
no, they do sneaky cost cutting. Like they might remove like boot cladding, for example. Like Toyota does this all the time. Like with much,
they'll do it. They have to manage costs here, and it'll be completely understandable if they do that sort of thing.
Yeah,
for two reasons. One, let me get into a tangent of how this came about and why it's called the urban cruiser, like you just saw on screen.
Yes.
The urban cruiser. If the audience listening knows, was the Toyota twin of the Vitara Brezza, which is a Maruti Suzuki product.
Yep.
Ground up, completely Maruti Suzuki, just literally rebadged, rebumpered, and Toyotaized, right? But this, though, is slightly different. This is going to be, it's still going to be mostly Maruti, but then it's going to have a lot of Toyota influence on this one, especially for the hybrid powertrain.
Nice.
So it's sitting on the S-Cross platform, which is already, Suzuki's biggest car offering. Well, except for the MPV class ones.
Yeah.
The XL6 and the Ertiga is there, but
right.
In terms of a car, the S-Cross was the biggest offering. And was it the most expensive? Yeah, I think the most, running into the most expensive as well. And that was based off of the SX4, which was, again, just going back in generations, which was based off the original Swift.
Yep.
So rolling that all back forward, this is sitting on the S-Cross platform, obviously modified to fit. And now the both brands are going to have, once again, twins, but in the new segment, right? So the earlier segment was the sub 4 meter segment. I failed to understand what the segments are actually called, the C1, D1, whatever.
Yeah.
Right. It's too complex.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean. So sub 4 meter segment was the urban cruiser. and the Vitara Brezza.
Yep.
Now, what they're doing here is this Hyrider is called the Urban Cruiser Hyrider.
Hyrider,
which
yeah.
they shouldn't have done. They should have just called it Hyrider and been done with it.
Yep.
It's confusing for everybody. But
Yeah.
Suzuki is taking the right decision. And the new Brezza that's just been launched as well, which was a couple of weeks ago, is called just Brezza. It's not called Vitara Brezza anymore. It's just Brezza. And the Vitara is going to be a parallel product of the Hyrider. Right. And we know, everybody knows that Suzuki internationally always had a Vitara. Now, it's yet to be confirmed if the Vitara that's coming out to India is going to be based on that, or is it going to be different. My finger is on it's going to be different. It's just going to be called Vitara for the purposes of being called Vitara. But it's still going to share this platform with the S-Cross and the Hyrider. More interesting stuff on the Hyrider. It's got multiple variants of hybrid. So it's got a mild hybrid and a strong hybrid.
Oh, interesting.
Now, this is where it gets interesting. They are targeting, well, again, they haven't announced pricing yet, but the general media folk think it's going to be between 10 and 20 lakhs. Right?
Ooh, okay, nice.
And even at that 20 lakh ex-showroom price, if they're able to do that, that would still be a steal, right, for the strong hybrid.
Yep.
I'll tell you why. Because Honda's come out with their EV recently, or not EV, sorry, the hybrid. Recently in India, the Honda City.
Hybrid. Yes.
And we spoke about the few episodes ago, and we spoke about how gas mileage is going to be really good on that one, and it is proving. I've heard yesterday from somebody at Honda yesterday that people are reporting 26, 27 kilometers to the liter, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
But again, that put in perspective only if you take into account how much it costs to buy. It costs 24 lakhs on road. A Honda City. The joke of that is you can get a diesel Honda City for about 13, 14 odd lakhs, which is going to give you close to that mileage.
I see.
Right? It's going to give you 23-ish, 22, 23-ish kilometers to the liter. Now, are you really spending twice or two Honda Cities money just to get that 3 kilometers per liter? It's really stupid, the pricing that Honda's done.
And for the average lifespan of a vehicle in India, like in the city, you're not going to make that up in fuel savings. Yeah.
Forget the average life cycle of longevity of a car. It's never going to happen. How much does fuel really cost, right?
Yeah.
To take the industry, and how much do you really drive?
Yeah.
And how much can it be driven, right? At some point, it's going to need some expenses to go into it to rebuild that hybrid system. Right? The battery's going to have to be replaced. All that stuff is going to happen.
You think this will cut into the current market dominated by the Creta?
100%.
100%, right? Yeah, that's what they're gunning for.
100%.
Yeah.
I think that'll very much happen. I think orders or bookings have started. I'm pretty sure they're all booked out for whatever they're planned.
Wow. Yeah.
I'm almost positive that's happened, because when Toyota announces a new product, that's generally the case. First. Second, the proposition that's there at this pricing is very, very unique.
Very strong. Yeah.
Very strong, very unique. And there is, like, fuel is an immediate concern here.
So fuel's expensive, but you get the electric efficiency benefit without having to worry about charging. A lot of things at play here, right? Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Right. So I think this is going to be a good one for Toyota.
Yeah.
Right. It's been a want for a long time, but it's finally here.
Interesting. Another big announcement was Mahindra has launched the Scorpio N.
The big daddy.
The big daddy SUV.
Scroll down. I'll explain the big daddy thing to you. Well, the big daddy, it says there. Scroll up a little.
The big daddy of all SUVs. Nice.
This is okay, right? I mean, that's cheesy. Fine.
Yeah.
It's copy on a website.
Yeah.
But the trailer, I've got another link there.
Yeah,
the
yep,
trailer
yep.
also says that.
It
says daddy's back or something like that. Something ridiculous.
Oh, for some reason, this video is not available in the US.
Oh, that's odd. Okay. Let me try to. Actually, you know what? Why don't you take that off screen and then
Yeah,
we'll
yeah.
look for a Scorpio N trailer.
Yeah. I'll look for that. But yeah, tell me more about the Scorpio while I do that.
So Scorpio, I mean, it's been a legend, and
Okay.
it's
Oh,
going to
yeah.
continue to be a legend, right? It's
Yes.
been a legend in the commercial space. It's been a legend in exports. It's been a legend in taxis.
Yep.
People buying it just because there was nothing else available at the time, right? It
Yeah.
was just after Qualys went out,
Uh-huh.
and it's stuck around till now.
Yep.
And it's always been. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
So it's always been it's always been one of those cars that have had a cult following, and this is kind of thematic with Mahindra's SUV offerings anyway, right? They had the
Yep.
Thar, they had this, and it's always been a success. And obviously, with each refresh of the Scorpio, they've had better engines, better blah blah blahs.
Yep.
And this is just going to be a refined version of that.
Yeah.
It's going to stick around for a while. People are going to buy it.
Yep.
And now the only question is everybody who booked XUV 700 going to shift over to the Scorpio because it's newer now, right?
It's newer.
I'm not saying the market is same.
It's less of an investment too, right?
Different.
It's
I would, yeah.
It's less money.
It is
yeah.
less expensive.
Yeah.
It is less expensive. That's what I was saying. They're the big daddy of serious.
The big daddy of SUV is nice.
Right. Bold claims.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I mean, it's one of those vehicles that has long history here, right? It'd be like if they were to reboot Qualys for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I mean, they won't, but
Yeah.
if they were to, right? Or if they, well, what they just did a couple of years ago was reboot the Thar, which has crazy fan following now. Like everybody's got them here.
Yep.
Everybody. I drove it. It drives like, well, expletive. But it drives really bad, right? Like it's got that wooden brake feel. It's not good to drive at all. But people love it. People love the way that it looks. People love the fact that people perceive it as like a Wrangler.
Yep.
And that's a big SUV here, right?
Yeah.
And you don't have too many 3-door SUV options or short wheelbase SUV options in India. So, and the pricing on that is also decent. So the Thar has worked out, and I'm sure the Scorpio is going to work out as well. It's going to be successful.
Nice.
I mean, I don't really have to harp on about it. It's going to do well.
What's really interesting is the play that Mahindra has been making the last couple of years in terms of putting new technology in. I mean, both Mahindra and Tata, I would say to some extent, but they're really upping their game, so to speak. And
I think Mahindra works with an India-based ICE developer, right? So a third-party company who builds the infotainment plus the gauge cluster display and all of that stuff.
Yeah,
I think I might be wrong on this. So I think the company is called Visteon.
right. I've heard of them. Yeah. I feel like they're right. That's right. Yeah.
And I think those guys are doing a really good job these days. And I test drove the XUV 700 with all the ADAS features in. Well, it's ADAS 1, but it's still good for India, right?
Yeah.
It's still something that you can't get at that price point. You can get it now because of the MG Aster, but you can... well, basically, those are the only two cars you can get it in at that price point: the XUV 700 or the MG Aster.
And just as a clarification, ADAS 1 is emergency brake assist.
So emergency brake assist, lane keep assist, lane departure warning.
Okay. So it's way more advanced.
Adaptive cruise control.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, those are it.
Yeah, for a company to announce and support that feature in India is pretty impressive at that price point, especially.
I mean, that's the thing with the XUV 700. For all those features, you're getting into the 26-27 lakh mark. So it's still not bad, but you can get the same body, same features, same interiors for a lot cheaper. That ADAS component comes in with a few more extra bits and bobs here and there, but that's a big jump from the previous kind of tier. But if you really want it, why not?
And sticking with Mahindra, they are also announced a new debut electric vehicle, which is the XUV 400, I guess. I don't know about the design though, but that's just a render
well,
by some company. So there are some
I think
spy shots as
that's a
well.
render,
Yeah,
but yeah, so it looks kind of like, well, not kind of, it looks exactly like the XUV 300, right?
I see.
So there is a show
Mm-hmm.
or exhibition or expo photo of the XUV
Mm,
or the EXUV. Just check
I
that
see.
out. Maybe
Okay.
you'll get that.
Okay. I'll try to find that.
So that's what.
So,
Yeah,
so
yeah. Just look at EXUV. You'll get it, and you can put it on screen. So
yeah.
it's the XUV 300, but EV. I think for whatever reason they're calling it the XUV 400,
Mm-hmm.
maybe for less confusion. But that I don't know how well that's going to do, because the XUV 300 to begin with didn't do as well as the Nexon.
Mm.
Yeah, so this was the XUV 300 EV planned soon, and what
Mm-hmm.
they're now more recently announcing is the XUV 400. Now I don't know, I don't have the dimensions, so I can't
Yeah.
say for
Can't really.
sure.
Yeah.
So it might have been stretched, but basically it looks the same as the
Okay.
XUV 300.
So the Mahindra's taking multiple stabs at trying to compete with the Nexon EV, essentially. That's basically what this boils down to.
Yeah, yeah. Tata's got to do something different with the EV space soon, because they're kind of stagnant now. Now that they've done the midlife update, if you were, for the Nexon EV,
Yep,
which is
yep.
the EV Max. Now they got to put plans in proper motion for what's next, right? Are they doing electric hatch properly, like they promised, the Altroz EV? Because they have the Tigor EV.
Okay.
Tigor EV is, but that's too tiny. It's going to be short range. That's not going to sell well. I've seen a couple, but it's not selling well. But are they going to do something proper for the masses, right? I mean, they already did the Nexon, but something more affordable than 16, 17 lakhs.
Okay.
So yeah, wait and see.
Moving
What else we
back,
got?
moving back to ICE engines. Maruti is planning to finally release the Jimny in India, but then it may be the 5-door version, which doesn't necessarily look great, as opposed
No, it
to.
doesn't. Not necessary.
It doesn't look great. Full stop. Okay.
How is that thing allowed as an SUV that's supposed to go off road? If you go over a rock, you're just going to be rocking.
Yeah,
literally.
that's true. Yeah.
Its wheels are too far apart to be any good at. I mean, again, this is speculation, but just based on the look of it, the wheels are too far apart
Yeah.
to the corners to be any useful at rock crawling or any of that kind of 4x4 stuff.
Yeah.
As usual, we don't get the good stuff. We get some kind of diluted version.
Yeah. So on screen now, I have the sort of the 3-door version of the Jimny that's sold in global markets.
Classic.
Sadly, this vehicle is
The mini G-Wagon.
is neither sold in the US nor in India. Maruti is expecting to sell it in India next year. At least that's the rumors. And we don't know if the 3-door's coming. It's most
No, the
possibly.
3-door isn't coming for sure, is what was confirmed, right? So
Oh,
the 5-door
I
is
see.
coming, but eventually they don't have a date for it. But it might be closer to, I don't know who's going to beat who to the punch,
Yeah.
but the Thar, the Mahindra Thar 5-door is also in the
I
works.
see.
So,
This is just.
I mean,
yeah.
you don't really cross shop both these, right? So
Yeah.
the Thar is a much bigger vehicle. It's like comparing a Jimny to a Wrangler. A Wrangler is a bigger vehicle. You can't get around that fact. But the Jimny is going to be more fun in the city.
It's such a gigantic misstep from these guys who are just famous for doing missteps, I think, for not releasing the 3-door version. And they
I
don't.
just don't get it. Is it like they don't listen to the consumer? Like everybody online who's a potential buyer for this is saying, "Hey, give me this. I don't want the 5-door."
And the thing is, like, so both you and I, we are auto enthusiasts. We know what the Jimny is. Not necessarily all Indian consumers know what the Jimny is. But seriously, Maruti could just bring this to India and call it the Gypsy. And it would sell like hotcakes. But they just refuse to do so. I don't know.
They might do that, right? So just to sell it, they might call it the Jimny Gypsy or something like that. They
Or
might
Gypsy
co-brand it,
Jimny, yeah.
something like that.
Yeah,
right?
something like that.
And then have ads around memories and all of that stuff, as they usually do.
Yeah.
like triggered the Indian nostalgia.
Yeah.
Right.
So I had this sort of like counterpoint that Maruti possibly never intended to sell the Gypsy in India, but did because they had a large defense contract. A lot of Gypsies were sold to the Indian Army, and then that was the big buyer for the Gypsy back in India, and then they sold versions to normal consumers as well.
Yeah,
and
but here's the thing, right? Like these are products, right? In the end of the day,
Yeah.
you have to listen to the consumer and
Yeah.
what they want. And if they've clearly shown an indication to, we love the Gypsy and we'd love to have a new version of it come out,
Yeah.
why don't you just do that?
Yeah, it's true.
And keep in mind, the Gypsy earlier was a 3-door. It had a longer back, that you could get in. It was a bench seat kind of thing, where you could jump in the back. But it was a 3-door technically.
Yep. And the idea, I think, was that it could be repurposed for different things, for defense purposes and things like that. I don't know. Maybe there's a platform difference, but yeah, it's still it is kind of. Yeah,
it might be a long play also, like you said as well. Like if they bring out the 5-door, they might be able to chop it, throw a truck bed on it. Who knows?
That's true. Speaking of trucks in India, like I know like the main truck, the pickups. Hilux is out, and the main one that you could buy before that was the Isuzu, right? The D-Max.
Yeah, the V-Max.
Okay.
The D-Max V-Cross.
D-Max V-Cross. Okay. And
speaking of D-Max V-Cross, I was driving down to my folks' house yesterday.
Okay.
And in Kochi, there was this queue of like 14, 15 D-Max V-Crosses jumping out of the Isuzu showroom. They were going on like some kind of trail.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it's like a customer engagement program, like dealer supported drive off, right? Off-road or whatever. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Oh, I didn't realize there was a cult around the V-Max and D-Max V-Cross. Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised. You know what happened? In 2017, this thing cost all but 14, 15 lakhs.
Yep.
Right? A steal at the time for a 4x4 pickup truck. Now it costs nearly 30 lakhs.
What?
Yeah.
That's nuts.
I don't know what they did with the pricing, but somebody screwed up there.
Okay. It's cool. You can get like you can get most of the small US truck features in a truck that you can buy in India, but it costs 30 lakhs. But you do get like a bed cover and so as an accessory, I'm assuming. That's interesting. Wow. And 4x4 as well available, or only 4? No, 4x4. Yeah.
No, 4x4 only. I think it's no.
There is a 4x2 AT and 4x4 empty. Nice. Wow. Yeah.
No, there's a 4x4 AT as well. So
okay.
There's everything.
So I see they're doing expeditions and stuff. Yeah. So they're building a cult around it. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, and they have the MUX as well, which is basically the SUV version of this.
I see. Okay, interesting.
The MUX.
So how much is the Hilux going for? Because that's the big daddy of pickup trucks, right? Like,
I think that's well into the 30s.
And is that CBU? Do you know?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
It's 34 lakhs.
Oh, hold on. Big message from Toyota right on the screen. Bookings have been suspended. Oh, so,
yeah, they're going to stop. Is what,
okay, I see.
News came out.
I see.
I didn't see any on the street yet. So
wow. Here's the big advertising figure: 204 horsepower. For an
on
Indian
a diesel, how many newton meters? It's
500. Sorry, 500. Yeah, 6-speed.
Not bad.
I mean, for India, that's the thing, right? Like you don't generally get to see that much hauling power in like smaller trucks. Yeah.
36 for the all-in 4x4 automatic version. 37 almost. Which is ex-showroom, so closer to 40 when it's on road.
Yeah, I guess. It's not bad, but it is very
lifestyle vehicle.
It is still expensive. You can argue.
You can think about it this way.
Yeah.
If you're going to buy a Mini Cooper,
yeah,
and you'd rather have a truck. put your money here.
No. I'll tell you who the buyer for this is. If you're thinking of buying a Fortuner, but you'd rather have a truck, this is what you need to look at, right?
I don't think this. Well, given that builders buy Fortuners,
No, see,
Bob the builder.
no, seriously, like
Ram
if
the builder is not going to buy this.
So if you're buying a Fortuner to haul people around, you're not buying a Hilux. But if you buy a Fortuner and you find yourself hauling things around, this is an interesting value proposition. Obviously Toyota's not going to disclose how many people booked, but apparently the response was overwhelming enough for them to put this huge, might be just advertising, but like it'll be interesting to see what happens.
I think see, they might have had a limited run anyway of how many units they plan to release, and those might have been booked up already. It's a Toyota, like I said. Toyotas get picked up very fast. Like people don't have doubts about that purchase. As long as the price fits, they'll buy it. So Hilux, haven't seen any on the streets yet. So
speaking, shifting gears actually to not so great news, depending on how you see it. China's Great Wall Motor has shelved its $1 billion India expansion plan. Great Wall is actually one of the bigger Chinese automotive giants, right? Like, are they related to BYD or they're completely?
No, they're
separate, right? Yeah. And I remember seeing a bunch of Great Wall pickup trucks back in the Middle East when we were both in Qatar, right? Like they were very popular for having a Hilux variant, quote unquote variant.
Yeah, it's always that. Like it's a clone of whatever.
Yes. Although they've been recently trying to pivot into electrics, right?
I think they've made a very, very large leap into consumer vehicles, right? So it's sort of the old Kia stories, right? When we used to see Kias when we were younger, it was usually industrial, it was cheap, it was
minivans,
that kind of commercial, right? And then slowly they started building consumer cars, and I had one in 07, and then like it improved on from there, right?
By leaps and bounds.
Similar story with and then a similar story for Great Wall as well, right? So they started out building these crude kind of do the job kind of machines, and in China it's been huge forever, right? It's one of the biggest, like you said, auto manufacturers and suppliers in China. And let me quickly do a market share thing.
For their plans in India were actually to buy up some of the former GM plant that used to be in India, I believe in Maharashtra, and that was their idea. But apparently, being a Chinese company making a massive investment in the sector, they ran into a lot of regulatory and sort of bureaucratic problems, which is why they called off their investment plan and took their money to Brazil, apparently, which is another place where they could do this.
I mean, there's going to be a lot of things here, right? So it's just, you got to think about all the things that are playing. One, it's a Chinese brand.
Geopolitics.
So you're going to have geopolitics there. You're going to have them trying to buy a GM plant, which is probably not in good nick in the first place. Second, having that GM exited India a couple of years ago. It's probably not going to be good. The third thing is general acceptance of Chinese vehicles here is going to be pretty difficult. And to add to that, their first plan was to launch the Haval H6, which is an SUV that they have. And the pricing for that, or the suggested pricing, was going to be 60 to 65 lakhs, which would have been insane to come in as a non-luxury brand and a Chinese one on top of that. And try to play an Indian market where that kind of money is thrown around for luxury vehicles. Right? Nobody wants to buy a Haval H6.
That's true. The only way you could make it acceptable is if you go the MG route, right? Be a Chinese parent company, but then have a stronger non-Chinese
British,
branding. Pedigree.
That's what I was getting at. The only thing that, right? So China, Chinese brand MG, that's the only thing they had. It was from day one. It was, this is a British brand. This is Brit. Like we had British ads for it. We had, I think the first ad I saw for the Hector was one with Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah, Cumberbatch.
Right? Right. So it was that kind of enforcement of, this is, never talking about the fact that this is Chinese.
And they stressed on the full form too, right? Morris garages, wherever they could, they would just keep calling it Morris garages.
Right.
Yeah, so, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean that would have been the only way to make this work, but these guys don't have that kind of pedigree to kind of back them.
So a lot of high-profile exits in the Indian car market, as well as very public, high-profile news items of, brands that should set up shop in India, like Tesla. But then, there's this battle between Elon Musk's Twitter feed and the Indian government, which is, like in Hindi, it's like this jute do, paise do, jute lo, whatever. Elon wants to be able to sell Teslas in India first without paying CBU taxes before he will set up shop manufacturing in India. And India is like, no, sell CBU units in India if you want to test the waters, and then set up manufacturing if you want to not pay CBU prices, which is what they should do, because that's what every other manufacturer has been playing by those rules so far.
There's two things there. One, like I was saying earlier, one of the things was the charging network, right?
Yep.
The charging network is a huge part of how Tesla influences their customers to buy it. Like it's ubiquitous that you're going to be going here to there, and you're going to be charging at a Tesla supercharger. Now, with the CBU plan, they're limited in their scope. Now, if it's CBU, you can only bring in a certain number of units every year. And those units are going to be for, well, let's face it, it's going to be for the elite. Right? And those folks not necessarily going to rely on superchargers driving around town. Right? They're going to charge up at their place of residence, and they're going to do that. So the thing is, it wouldn't have been a large enough sample size for Tesla to kind of explore if they need to set up charging networks. So what is the electricity infrastructure everywhere? Where do they need to set up? What are the costs involved in that? All these different kind of moving parts. I'm not trying to support Elon's decision, but I'm just trying to make sense of it.
Devil's advocate.
Trying to make sense of it, right?
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
These are the kind of things that, as a consumer, you would be aware of, right? So if you're buying into that Tesla brand, it's kind of like buying a Harley, so to say. Right? Like you're buying a Tesla, you kind of
that lifestyle,
Exactly. Right? You kind of come to expect that, hey, I have a Tesla, I am now a Tesla. I don't want to say anything bad about Tesla, but sure. I'm a Tesla person, right? So
insert your favorite word here.
Exactly.
But that's the thing I was thinking of, was like, because of all these high profile exits of these large car manufacturers that were actively doing manufacturing, there's a bunch of manufacturing units available in India. So there is scope for a disruptor that may be homegrown to start up in India, but then you have
as they have the right influence.
You need to have the right influence. You need to have the right scale. You need to have already most of your ducks in a row, as they say, right? Like, you need to have most of your things figured out. But there are possibly some discount manufacturing facilities available for you if you are a startup in this space and you're looking to manufacture.
Hit up GM and Haval, or not Haval, Great Wall.
GM, Great Wall,
for you.
Ford, right? Ford exiting. But that's the thing. Like, Ford exited, and then their exit strategy was to transfer those things over to Mahindra. But then that relationship apparently soured, right? So I don't know what the situation is. But if these brands are really desperate, they may give away some of their assets at throwaway prices. You never know. That was a pretty interesting segment on cars. A lot of releases, a lot of
new releases.
Lot of news.
Might as well throw one more in there. The Citroen C3 is coming out soon.
Oh, interesting.
So one more sub 4 meter.
This is the C3 and not the Aircross.
No, not the
Okay.
C5 aircrafts.
Okay,
that
I
they
see.
had, I think, again, limited units.
Okay.
I've seen a few on the streets,
Okay.
but not too many. Jeep has their Jeep Meridian now, which is the stretched version of the Jeep Compass with 2 more seats added in. Essentially the same car, but
7-seater.
7-seater.
I see. The C3, especially from a design standpoint, is interesting.
It's quirky.
Quirky.
Yeah, it's quirky. It's nice.
Yeah.
Also, interestingly, while all the other manufacturers would have called this an SUV
Yeah.
in India, these guys are taking the hatch route.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
They're not calling it an SUV.
Okay. Interesting. All right.
They feel like it's not like night and day difference, right? In the end of the day, the customer's going to look at it and feel it and buy it. So they would be convinced anyway. I mean, regardless of which segment it's perceived to be in.
So they're trying to compete in the venue segment, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, exactly. The venue, the Brezza, the Sonnet.
What's the other? What was Renault's item in this segment? Do they have one?
The Kiger.
Kiger, yeah, that's right. So
And
the
Nissan's is the Magnite.
the two French vehicles in India in this segment is the Kiger and
Yeah.
then this. Okay, interesting. Yeah.
Let's see how Citroen does. Once again, it totally depends on how widespread they get their dealer network.
Yeah.
In my opinion, nobody new has come out as strong as Kia. Just setting up their dealer networks, every major city
Yep, that's
in
true.
dealer networks, right? They've got the huge plant in Andhra anyway, but just the dealer network they have is huge.
Yep. Moving on to some of the gaming news. I actually wanted to talk about this because I've personally been working in this space a little bit. Playing in this space a little bit. Linus Tech Tips.
Yes.
Linus
The
Tech
story.
Yes, Linus Tech Tips put out a video which is basically bait for Nintendo, which is how to install emulation and play Nintendo Switch games on the Steam Deck. The reason they did this was because Nintendo has been taking down videos that do the same from smaller YouTubers, and the theory is that Linus Tech Tip is big enough with enough clout and enough sort of like money to kind of
Show this live.
Yeah,
Or not live.
not
Put
live,
this
but
out there.
put this out, and if Nintendo retaliates, they actually have the power to kind of see them in court, so to speak, if they wanted to, right? So it's like an open challenge to Nintendo, literally an open challenge to Nintendo, because the title of the video literally says, take down this video.
I mean,
Nintendo.
they've smartly blurred out all the IP content.
Yes. So again, that's also a big farce, right? Like Nintendo does not take out any images of Nintendo IP that is displayed in videos on Switches. they only take down videos if it's shown on a non-Switch device, which is not, at least according to DMCA, it doesn't. What device you show it on doesn't.
I mean,
shouldn't
otherwise,
make a
how would
difference.
you? Yeah, how would you review a game on Switch?
Yeah. So far nothing's happened, and my inclination is that Nintendo will not fight this. But at the same time, all of this information is available.
They might. I'll tell you why. Because this now exposes any PC user to have a Switch on their PC.
Yes,
Not just the Steam Deck.
100%. Any PC, it works.
So basically, now there's an emulator that works for the Switch. What they might do is write some more non-emulator friendly code into their new updates, new software versions, new games that they launch, and so on.
So this will be a standard fight that's been going on against emulators and game companies. It's from back from the PS1 days in the 90s with Bleem and CVGS. If you remember, that's how
I kind of see their point. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of on their boat as well, right?
No.
Put out all this.
It makes
research,
sense.
Investment.
Yeah.
All these marketing, blah blah blah, all the things they've done to kind of make sure that there's enough kind of let's say a large enough user base for this thing, and then somebody swoops in and says, hey, you can all play it for free now on PC.
So here's my counterpoint to that, and that's basically based on the way Nintendo treats its older consoles. So they've shut They've shut like the Nintendo Wii shop, for example, and this will play into the next topic that I want to talk about as well. So, and the thing about Nintendo games is they're not necessarily cutting edge. So there's a lot of replay value in older consoles and older systems, and Nintendo doesn't treat their customers fairly with regards to those older platforms. In that you might have paid for a digital copy of an old game. But if you take your old DS or Wii and try to download that game again, it's just no longer available anymore because they shut the shops on those. That's one. And the second is these companies sometimes are extremely hypocritical in that when they do decide to release older games on current gen systems, they actually just silently package an emulator in there anyway. So Sony has done this. I'm not sure if Nintendo has done this, but a bunch of companies actually do this, wherein they actually...
So you're talking from a backward compatibility.
Yeah, from a backward compatibility perspective. Now, but legally, if you're doing what is shown on screen right now, which is what LTT did, which is you own the Switch and you own the games, and you'd like to play them on the Steam Deck, legally... you should be able to. You are not breaking any laws when you do it because you paid for it. The problem is that this also opens up the Steam Deck to be able to play Switch games illegally, where you don't own the Switch and you don't own the games.
Yeah.
Don't ask me how I know or don't know about this, but it is possible to do those things. And that's all I'll be.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
That's all I'm able to publicly disclose. But let me tell you this, the Switch emulation on the Steam Deck is shockingly good.
The Switch isn't that powerful anyway.
It isn't. But that's the thing. It's a much newer piece of hardware. It is NVIDIA Tegra-based hardware. But it is... I did not expect it to be this good. Let's just put it at that. And the fact that you basically have the same controller layouts, right? They're slightly like you've got the side D-pad, you've got
except
the two
for the offset joysticks apart. Everything else is the same, right?
So the Nintendo Joy-Cons have gyro support, which I also tested and was able to get on the Steam Deck to work. So there's fundamentally you're not losing out on any of the hardware experiences. The issue is that there is some stuttering when you start because shader caches have to be compiled on the, but it's only going to get better over time. It is frankly, it was really stunning how good it was because you're not able to play some of the other older platforms. Like PS3 is very difficult, notoriously difficult to emulate because of the nature of its SoC and the weird quirkiness of the cell broadband engine chip or whatever. But rest assured, this is not going to be the last time you hear about this. This is definitely going to be an issue. The other thing is that the Nintendo might not be so concerned about Steam because it's such a tiny market, given how difficult it is to get one of these and how expensive it is. But like you said, this really opens up the avenues for just being able to play Switch games on the PC by just making it more known out there, like that this is possible. Shout out to Yuzu, incredible emulator for it to be able to play Switch games like this. It's absolutely.
How soon are Steam Decks shipping out now?
I think if you reserve now, October.
Okay, reserve now, October. Oh.
Yeah, and
quite a wait.
The other thing is from like I'm definitely an enthusiastic, first gen early adopter guy who bought into the Steam Deck, but not everybody is. I also have a lot of Linux experience, so I can go in and hack around in the deck and kind of get things working. So far, I've not been able to. I've not had to do a lot of that, which is also very impressive, right? Like if you use Emu Deck, and then if you do some very targeted searches on Google, you will be able to find everything you need, legal or not. But it is far easier than I thought it would have been. So a lot of people are saying, let's wait for version 2, let's wait for an OLED screen, let's wait for better battery life. It's possible that would be the case. But I still am impressed. And I think videos like this and disclosures like this will only kind of increase the hype around the Steam Deck. And to be fair to Valve, like whatever teething issues were there at launch, they are getting fixed pretty quickly, one by one, right? There was a lot of issues, like a lot of people complained about fan noises. They've kind of released an update to deal with that. So, in my opinion, very solid portable that I can honestly daily drive.
How's the battery holding up?
Batteries so far so good. Now, if you do this thing where if you just put it in standby in the middle of a game, you'll have battery drain. So I tend to shut it down before I put it away. It's fine, honestly.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm still a big vocal supporter of the deck just because of how well it works. And the Switch emulation is a big plus now all of a sudden. Right? Like I knew in theory that it was possible, and I actually had it set up on and tested out on my deck before this video even came out. So I can, but the fact that this video is getting a lot of traction
for
from
scientific and research purposes.
Yes. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But yeah, we'll have to see what. I only think that it's only going to keep getting better now. The other news in gaming that I wanted to talk about was this has been distressing to a lot of people. So Ubisoft is now planning to shut down multiplayer and online services for about 15 games in September 2022. But the problem is that those games are well loved and, arguably often replayed titles. So from Assassin's Creed 2 and 3 and Brotherhood and, Liberation or Revelations, you will not be able to play multiplayer, which is fine. You won't be able to use online features, which is fine. But the thing that really irks me is that for a lot of these games, DLC is going to be unavailable. And the unavailability of the DLC is only for the PC versions because they have to go through Uplay, which is Ubisoft's client, right? It looks like DLC will still be available on the platforms like PS3, Xbox 360 because they don't have to distribute the DLC. The DLC is distributed by the in-game store. So as long as the PS3 store or the Xbox store is available. This is super annoying. And the fact is that it's one of the big risks with digital games, right? Like you don't own them.
Exactly.
So you can't buyer beware.
Rely on the fact that 20 years down the line, if you feel nostalgic, you can pop not a vinyl but a Blu-ray into the PS3/4 and make sure that works. It's not going to. Right? That's the thing.
What is extra egregious about this is that the I take personal opposition to is Far Cry 3 is a watershed game for Ubisoft, right? It's the game that established the Ubisoft design language. Basically, every game from Ubisoft after Far Cry 3 has just been a Far Cry 3 clone. And Ubisoft owes a lot of their current success to Far Cry 3's success. It's a nostalgic game for many, and Far Cry 3 has some good DLC. But if you have a digital copy of Far Cry 3 with digital copies of the DLC on PC, you won't be able to play them come September 2022. And ideally, some of these companies should have some end-of-life strategy that's a responsible strategy back to the gamers. Like, let's say that you're closing these games out at the end of the end of life. At that point, you should just kind of, DRM free them or something, right? You should say, okay.
Yeah, exactly. You're not going to make any money out of it anymore. Why bother?
Exactly. So what you should do is you have all the data, right? You know which customers own these DLCs. You should proactively email them. You should say, hey, we're going to close this out. We're sorry, this won't be available on Uplay anymore. But then you should
download this for free until X date, and then it'll be.
Or even better, you should just say, here's a key to download these things that we are end of lifing on GOG or on Steam. That's the responsible way of handling this.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on if they're actually paying for hosting space to make.
Yeah, exactly. And this is this is all the more reason for me, at least, to be firm on my beliefs, which is if I'm paying for a game on PC, and if it's not on Steam or if it's not on GOG, then I'm not going to buy it. Like, I will accept free games from Epic whenever they release them, which is fine. I didn't pay anything for them, and if they suddenly
I'm not losing out.
And if they suddenly revoke or close down the store and I lose all of those games, okay, it sucks, but I didn't pay for any of it. So
yeah,
it's still a little more, it's still a little more digestible compared to,
yeah.
Yeah,
I know what you mean.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on to our next gaming topic, which is the action figure FPS game called Hypercharge, which is going viral.
Hypercharge just went viral this week on TikTok.
Okay.
And people have been talking about it, and it looks really cool. And what normally this would be like, okay, cool, yeah, let's move on. But what was interesting for me was there was some. It was Lou Later, I think a Lou Later episode where they featured this, where they said 5 developers made this game.
Wow.
And that's pretty insane. Like, what, 5 devs? Yeah. How much time did they use to create this game? And it's always a fun kind of thing to imagine, right? Miniaturized versions where you're kind of tiny, everything else is huge. And the story here is basically you're in a toy store and you're action figures.
Yeah.
Something along those lines.
Oh, that looks cool. It's basically Call of Duty for army men.
Okay. Not little green army man. No. It's pretty cool. The thing that, like I said, stuck out to me was it's an indie shop, and then 5 devs made this game. It's pretty impressive. We should see more of these things. Come out.
Oh, this is cool. Yeah, I might check them out sometime. Interesting. Inspiration came from Counter-Strike 1.6 and then the
20%
small soldiers as well. Nice. Interesting. And I think I wanted to talk about one more topic before we close out the podcast for this week. Diablo Immortal, aka Immoral, which is a hyper microtransaction infused version of Diablo, which is free to play, but then apparently after you pass a certain level you can't really make any progress in the game unless you pay. So it's basically a pay to win game. Had a lot of backlash, but apparently the game's good enough, and people are so hooked into sort of like these gambling gaming mechanics inside the game that Blizzard is basically just laughing all the way to the bank because they're making millions of dollars a day. According to app tracking data, the RPG is basically earning them $2.5 million in a day. So yeah, it's this. It feels like it's this losing battle, right? Like people keep. There are always these campaigns of.
This is not going to reverse itself. Nobody's going to be like, hey, I don't want the $2.5 million a day. Nobody's going to do that willingly, right? I mean, they have to find a balance where being responsible is a thing, but that only goes so far. As a corporate or as a business, you need to make sure the bottom line makes sense. And as a player, we see more and more of this with newer generations where that instant gratification, that instant dopamine hit is very important to them. And that's how this has been working, right? So they're used to the pay-to-win scenario, right? And whatever app you have or whatever game you have that is an online version of a game, there is a component where there's going to be microtransactions where you can, represent yourself in a different way if you pay some money. And it's kind of the same justification as one of these Web3 folks have said, where the question was, who's going to pay money for a virtual, look or appearance when you could just not pay anything, right? And still be on the platform.
Yeah.
The point is, it's kind of like wearing clothes if you look at it for, from these people's perspectives who are into this stuff.
Yeah.
It's like wearing clothes. You buy new kicks. You're going to the school. You're going to show off your new kicks, right? Or whatever. You get the point. I don't know who's showing off kicks right now, but you get my point.
I get your point. Yeah.
It's kind of like that. So skinning is very much part of the game, and that's kind of this whole culture of making sure that there's more and more stuff that you can plop your money into.
Yeah,
gets you new things.
I mean, in general, like I feel like cosmetics are a lot more acceptable to people. It's this skip the grinding using this paid pathway is what a lot of people usually take opposition to. And
yeah, I mean, I agree with that.
Yeah,
but the thing is,
I mean, if the grind is reasonable, as
long as it's reasonable. One, and second thing is, if damn, I lost my train of thought. If if the playing field is level, when it comes to important missions, or if it's story based, then you have to do certain checkpoints without the help of payment, then fine. Anything you do on top of it is superficial and does not affect the way you actually perform in the game is fine.
I agree. Yeah, and that was the problem with Immortal. It was the different calculations from different people kind of talked about, like, you can spend 10,000, 20,000, hundreds of thousands of dollars apparently, and you still won't hit max level. And this game is just engineered that way. And apparently the money factor is even more sort of disgusting in the fact that apparently that's become a new avenue for streamers. Like, streamers are actively on Twitch, for example, are actively advertising, look at how much, let's see how much money we can spend in Diablo Immortal, and then they're getting more clicks that way, and then it's just feeding into this machine and this frenzy, and it's just hilarious. Yeah. Anyways, but things probably will get worse before they have any semblance of getting better, or maybe people will eventually give up at some point, or something's gonna happen, and then, like, I don't know, we'll have to see. It's not just Diablo, right? Like, even we were talking about this FIFA as well, same thing. Ultimate Team just rakes in millions for EA, and it's just the nature of the business, I guess. Yeah. Anyway, and with that, I guess that's the end of this week in the TechCenix podcast. Thanks for sticking along for this pretty jam-packed episode of news articles that we had this week.
I know, we got through a lot of stuff today.
Yep.
A lot of stuff.
Yep. All right. So see you guys next time.
All right. Until next time.